Has beautiful been amazing or what? I don't know, but every year when we gather at conference, it's just special, isn't it? There's just something special about gathering with God's daughters. And especially when we all come from different backgrounds, we all come from different situations, we all come from different stages of life. There's some of us in here that are in high school, college, young adults, young married, young families, old families, retired. We're all different, but we're all united because we're all God's family. And I know that God has something individual for you today, but he also has something for us as a group. And I'm just so excited to share with you as we're closing conference today, because I know that it's going to be special. Are you ready? Yes. Oh, come on, girls. I said, are you ready? Yes. Thank you. Now, most of you know this, but maybe you don't know that my husband and I, Pastor Ryan, adopted a little baby 8 weeks ago. I have a newfound and deep love for concealer. Things are a little bit different in our house now, right? It went from just the two of us for 8 years to now bringing a newborn little baby into our house. And I think we're adjusting well. I mean, we are having to, make some changes and learn how to be flexible in a whole new way. Like, my plan was to curl my hair this morning, but when I was feeding the baby at 3:30, she spit up all in it. So that my plan to curl my day-old hair was not gonna work. So I have straight hair today because right now the baby is the boss of me. So that will not be forever, but right now she is the boss of me. We're surviving in my house on caffeine and cuddles, and I'm loving every single moment of it. I brought a picture. Do you want to see it? Right? I mean, have you ever seen a cuter face in the history of faces? No. This is my daughter. Lila Beth Visconti, and Ryan sent me a video of her. He's been babysitting like all week. So if he seems a little extra tired tomorrow, just give him some grace. But he sent me this morning, and I thought I would just share it with you so you could kind of see like what stage of life she's in right now. And she just started playing. Seriously, come on, right? It goes on forever. I won't make you watch the whole thing. This has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm talking about today, but I've just waited a long time to talk about my daughter from the stage, and I wanted to share this moment with you. Like, I don't have like some clever segue into like that story to like what we're going through at home right now to my sermon. I just wanted to be real with you guys for a minute. Is that okay? But she's amazing. She's perfectly healthy. I seriously am loving every single moment, even when she spits up in my hair. And honestly, like all the super gross things have happened to Ryan. So I'm just loving the moment. And it's always when I'm not home. So I don't know what happens, but she always poops and it ends up somewhere not in her diaper when I am not home and he is there. So, all right, now I'm going to talk about what God wants me to say today, because that was just like a moment with my sisters. Okay, but isn't she cute? Okay. Okay, I'm focused now. We know as Generation Women, as followers of Jesus, that God has called us, He has designed us, He has purposed us to be brave. We are brave. Now, you may be thinking when I say that, well, but I'm not brave, right? You say I'm brave, and the whole theme of the conference has been, I am brave, but I don't feel very brave. And you might be thinking something like, I'm just like a stay-at-home mom, and I'm not very brave. Or you might be thinking like, I'm just like a college student and trying to like live life and kind of adult at the same time, and I'm not very brave. Or you may be thinking like, I just wake up in the morning and I brush my teeth, hopefully, and get the kids out the door and go to work, come home, make dinner, repeat. I'm not very brave. You might be thinking, I'm not brave, but like soldiers are brave. Or policemen are brave. Or maybe you're like, people who go to Walmart on Black Friday are brave. I love Black Friday, but I do not go to Walmart on Black Friday. I am not that brave. Yes, these people are brave. But my friend, my sister, I want you to know, you can be brave too. Whatever season of life you're in, whatever your daily routine looks like, you are brave. I believe that God has called you to live a lifestyle of bravery. It's not just like a one-moment thing. You saved a cat from a burning building, okay? Yes, that's brave. But God has called us to live a lifestyle of bravery. It's very clear in the Bible that God desires for his people to be brave. Joshua 1:9. Here is what I'm commanding you to do. Just want you to sit on that word commanding for a moment. Here's what I am commanding you to do. Be strong and brave. Do not lose hope. I am the Lord your God. I will be with you everywhere you go. What an incredible promise from God. I will be with you everywhere you go. And even with this extraordinary promise from God, bravery always doesn't come super easy or naturally to us, does it? I don't think there's anyone in this room, and if this is you, I'll just hand you the mic and you can tell us how to do it, but I don't think there's anyone in this room where you wake up every single day of your life and you're like, I am brave, I am a warrior, I'm gonna attack this world for Jesus, and you just feel 100% confident in your bravery at all moments, all the time. Anybody? Is there anybody? No, I didn't think so. I know I don't feel that way. I do not feel brave at every moment of every day. I remember one time I was at kids camp. For those of you who don't know, I was a children's pastor for 15 years. So there's some of you in this room that I was your children's pastor, which makes me feel super old. I realized the other day I'm solidly in my mid-30s, and I had to take a moment, but then I realized I was okay. I was at kids camp, and our camp is pretty nice. It's not like you go and you sleep in a tent in the forest. It has rooms and beds and showers because I have my limits, okay? And I was at camp, and I think this was probably about 10 years ago, and I was sleeping in one of our dorm rooms, and it's the dorm leaders and 10 kids, which is really not a fair ratio to the dorm leaders, but it is what it is. So it was me and Caitlin, our kids director from our Ahwatukee campus. She's been with me from the beginning. And she has a baby too. Isn't God cool? Okay, I don't have a picture of her baby on the screen, or else I would show her too. But we were dorm leaders together that year, and it was time to go to bed, and we got all the girls ready for bed. I'm sure like at least 3 of them took a shower that day. And we put them to bed, and we got in bed, and we probably stayed up way too late talking, and then we fell asleep. And it was like maybe 2:30 in the morning, and I'm laying in my bunk bed, in my sleeping bag, totally asleep, and I start to like wake up a little bit. And I feel this like on my face. Exactly. And you know, you're like I was kind of half awake, half asleep, and I just feel like this on my face. And so I'm like starting to kind of realize like this is not a normal feeling that you have in the middle of the night. So I like, you know, you're like, what is that? And I like start like at my face, and I kind of like felt my hand hit something, and I was like, Caitlin, because I was not being brave. And my bed was this way, and her bed was this way. And so I was like, Caitlin, wake up. There was something on my face. She's like, what? I'm like, no, you have to wake up. There was something on my face. I don't know what it was. So she pulled out her phone, she turned on her flashlight, and starts looking. And on the floor, there was a cockroach. Ladies, that cockroach was on my face. And immediately, I completely freak out. I start hyperventilating. It's not on my face anymore. It was definitely on the floor. But I start hyperventilating. I'm freaking out. I cannot believe that there was a cockroach on my face. And I look at Caitlin, who is significantly younger than me, by the way, and I say, you have to kill it. And she's like, excuse me? And I was like, you don't understand. It was on my face. You have to kill it. So being the best friend that she is, she got out of bed in her jammies. And did you get a shoe? Oh, she for sure got a shoe. And in her brave moment and in my weakness, she killed that cockroach. And I wish I could say that was the end of the story. But I could not sleep for like the rest of kids camp that year. And it was for sure the last year I slept in a dorm because there was a cockroach on my face. And as you can tell by my extreme reaction by telling this story, I am not over it. It was traumatizing. But you know what? When I was laying in my bed just going like this, I wasn't afraid because I didn't know what it was. I wasn't afraid and terrified of that cockroach until I saw it. And I'm significantly larger than a cockroach. But it was on my face. But in that moment when I saw what was attacking me, it was out to get me. I know it was. When I saw what was attacking me is when I got scared. So I want to ask you, and this is the title of my sermon if you're taking notes. What do you see? What do you see? 2 Kings 6, starting in verse 8. I'm going to read a little portion of scripture and then we're going to talk through it. So follow along with me, 2 Kings 6, 8 through 17. When the king of Syria was at war with Israel, he would confer with his officers and say, we will mobilize our forces at such and such a place. But immediately Elisha, the man of God, would warn the king of Israel, do not go near that place, for the Syrians are planning to mobilize their troops there. So the king of Israel would send word to the place indicated by the man of God. Time and again, Elisha warned the king so that he would be on the alert there. The king of Syria became very upset over this. He called his officers together and demanded, "Which of you is the traitor? Who has been informing the king of Israel of my plans?" "It's not us, my lord the king," one of the officers replied. "Elisha, the prophet in Israel, tells the king of Israel even the words you speak in the privacy of your bedroom." "Go and find out where he is," the king commanded, "so I can send troops to seize him." And the report came back, "Elisha is at Dothan." So one night, the king of Syria sent a great army with many chariots and horses to surround the city. When the servant of the man of God got up early the next morning and went outside, there were troops, horses, and chariots everywhere. "Oh, sir, what will we do now?" the young man cried to Elisha. "Don't be afraid," Elisha told him, "for there are more on our side than on theirs." Then Elisha prayed, "Oh Lord, open his eyes and let him see." The Lord opened the young man's eyes, and when he looked up, he saw that the hillside around Elisha was filled with horses and chariots of fire. Wow, what an incredible story. I kind of really wish we still had the fire set up from last night, because it would have been so cool when I said fire if it went off. Oh well, next time. Okay, so the Syrians, the enemy, and the Israelites, God's people, were at war. All out war. And just like in any war, both sides are strategizing their plan of attack, right? The Syrians, they come together and they make a battle plan, and they go out to perform their battle plan, and by the time they get there, the Israelites already knew they were coming. That's a frustrating situation for the enemy army, right? Because Elisha, a prophet, was a mighty man of God, and a prophet just means that he was God's spokesman. God was speaking through Elisha and telling the Israelites exactly what the Syrians' battle plan was. That's a pretty cool advantage, right? So the Syrian king kept chasing the Israelites all over the place, setting up attacks, but Elisha was warning the king of Israel where the Syrians would attack from. This is a huge advantage for God's people, because it was actually impossible for the Syrians to win this war. The Israelites knew every single thing they were going to do, because God was using Elisha. Verse 11, the king of Syria became very upset over this. I mean, you'd be mad too, right? If you were trying to win a war and the enemy knew your enemy knew every single thing that you were going to do, that would just tick you off, wouldn't it? He called his officers together and demanded, "Which of you is the traitor?" In this moment, I kind of picture 24 and Jack Bauer. You know, has anyone ever seen that show? Like every human ever. When I read this, I picture it as in season 1, in episode 1, when we realize that Jack Bauer is the coolest human that's ever lived. And he's interrogating that woman, and then he shoots her in the knee, and you're like, whoa, he's for real. That's kind of how I picture this story. So just go with me with it, okay? He's trying to figure out who the traitor is so he can get rid of him. But all of his people said, "It's not us, my lord the king." One of the officers replied, "Elisha, the prophet in Israel, tells the king of Israel even the words you speak in the privacy of your bedroom." Could you imagine being the king of Syria in that moment? You would be so mad. You mean to tell me that the people that I'm trying to defeat already know every single thing that I'm going to do? God was obviously using Elisha in a powerful way. a very powerful way. And the Syrian king was so mad that his attack plan kept finding its way to the Israelite army. And when he found out it was Elisha who was telling the king of all of his plans, the Syrian king changed his focus. Before he knew that it was Elisha, he didn't care who Elisha was. He didn't care what he was doing because he wasn't a threat to him. So he was after the Israelite army, but as soon as he found out that it was Elisha that was telling the king what to do, he changed his plans. He changed his focus from attacking the Israelites and their king to attacking Elisha. And he thought, I'm going to destroy the one who is hurting me the most. So sometimes, ladies, when you're working hard, when you're doing your best to raise your kids, when you're trying your hardest to be a good wife or to get ahead at work, sometimes it'll just feel like these attacks are coming out of nowhere. Maybe there's setbacks at work or conflict in your life or sickness comes. And I want you to know today, I want you to understand that the enemy attacking you proves that God is using you. The king, the enemy, was coming after Elijah because he knew God was using him in a powerful way. And the same thing happens to us. The same thing happens to you. And when the enemy is after you, it's proof that you're a threat to him. You're doing damage to his plan. When we are brave, when we make a difference for Jesus in our world, our enemy notices. He starts to pay attention. And don't be fooled. There is an enemy. We have a real enemy. And he wants to kill us. He wants to destroy us. He wants to steal our joy from us. And when we start doing things like inviting our neighbors to church, when we start doing things like praying for a mom who's struggling in the pickup line at school, when we start standing firm in our beliefs at work and refusing to participate in things that don't honor God, when we start making a difference in our world for Jesus, the enemy notices. And you might feel an attack. There might be an attack of the enemy on your life. But that's just proof that God is doing something incredible through you. Don't be caught off guard when there's an attack. Stand firm. Because if we're complacent, if we're lazy, if we're scared, if we're fearful, the enemy won't waste his time on us. Because we're not doing anything that matters. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to live a life that doesn't make the devil notice me. I'm going to say that again. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live a life that doesn't make the devil notice me. I want him to see me and know I'm a threat because I'm living a brave and bold life for Christ. And my friends, I know that's the kind of life that God wants you to live too. When we live a brave life, when we live a life that's world-changing, let's not be surprised by the attacks of the enemy. So the king of Syria in this story, he realizes that Elisha is causing him a lot of problems. And what does he do? He makes a plan to capture Elisha. Verse 14, one night the king of Syria sent a great army with many chariots and horses to surround the city. In a different version of this verse, it says he sent a massive army. He sent a massive army to capture one dude. Okay? It's like, Who do you think is going to win, right? Massive army, one little dude. To the king of Syria, this was a foolproof plan. There was no way that Elijah could escape an attack from a massive army, many chariots and horses that were surrounding the entire city. That is a big threat. The king was not messing around. He sent all of his power to capture Elisha, a massive army. When the servant of the man of God got up early the next morning and went outside, there were troops, horses, and chariots everywhere. Whoa. The servant of the man of God would be like Elisha's assistant. He gets up, it's just another Tuesday, got his coffee in his hand, going to do his morning workout, walks outside of his tent, starts doing his stretches, looks up, surrounded by an army that was sent there to kill him. That's a bad day. That is a bad day. And let me tell you girls this. This was a worst case scenario for Elisha and his servant. There was no way humanly possible that they could escape this army. It was not possible. And the servant knew that. He walks out of his tent, looks around, and I would imagine he had a little freak out moment. Probably not as big as when the cockroach was on my face. But he probably panicked a little bit. He turned to Elisha and he said, "Oh, sir, what will we do now?" This is a panicked moment. This is a terrified moment. It says the young man cried to Elisha, "What are we going to do? It's just us and a whole army surrounding the city." And I just love Elijah's response to him. I think it's hilarious, actually. Elijah's response to him, "Don't be afraid." "Don't be afraid," Elisha told him, "for there are more on our side than on theirs." Now, I really can't decide, as I was reading this story over and over and over again, I really can't decide what I think the servant thought after Elijah said, "Don't be afraid." And I've narrowed it down to there's only two options, okay? When Elisha looked at his servant straight in the face and said, "Don't be afraid," he either thought, one, he trusted Elisha immediately and took a deep sigh of relief, which is probably not what happened. Or two, he thought, this guy is crazy. We're the only people here. I just imagine him like, "What are we gonna do? Don't be afraid." And the servant's like, 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 107, 109, 200. 1, 2. Army! What do you mean, don't be afraid? Especially because he said there are more on our side than on theirs. The servant's like, "I have eyes. Do you? There's 2 of us and a lot of them." But Elisha said, "Don't be afraid, for there are more on our side than there are on theirs." Why could Elisha say that? Why could he say that so confidently? He said, "Don't be afraid," because he knew that the Lord had sent an angel army to protect them. He knew because he could see them. He knew that their chances of winning were far greater than the enemy army because God was on their side, because he could see them. But the servant couldn't see him yet. So we have two men standing, facing an enemy army on all sides. One of them could not see the reality that was in front of them, and one of them could. Girls, I want you to know that your reality is not what you see. Your reality is not what you see. My friends, our eyes can be so deceptive. Our human eyes can be so deceptive to the truth. And if we look at any situation with only our human eyes, we will only see failure. We will only see hardship. We will only see destruction. We will only see defeat. When we trust what our eyes see, the only option is to live a life full of fear. When we trust our human eyes, it's hopeless. Elijah's servant looked out and he saw the army and he was filled with fear because he didn't see the whole picture. He only saw half of what was happening, which is why Elijah prayed this. "Oh Lord, open his eyes and let him see." Let him see. When I first read this story, Elisha's prayer struck me. It actually kind of shocked me. And it is definitely not what I would have prayed in that moment. I would have been like, "Oh Lord, get me out of here. Jesus, save me. Lift me up to heaven, Lord." I would have prayed anything but let this other guy see. He didn't pray for the army to back down. Elisha didn't pray for God to save them. He didn't pray for his circumstances to change. He prayed for his servant to see God's power. How often do we pray for God to change our situation? To fix it, to change it, to take it away, to remove something, to give us something. But we're praying for God to change our situation. How different would your life be if instead of asking God to change a situation, you prayed for God to change your sight? Instead of praying, "God, I need you to help me," you pray, "God, I need you to help me see your power. God, I need you to help me see your promises. God, I need you to help me see that you are working on my behalf in my circumstances. God, I need you to help me see you. I need you to help me see you." I have a challenge for us today, beautiful girls. Let's be brave enough, just brave enough to see God, see his truth, see his promises, see his power at work in our lives, and it be enough. It be enough. Let God be enough. Psalm 34:7. "For the angel of the Lord is a guard. A guard. He surrounds and defends all who fear him." That's you. That's you. If you have put your faith and your hope and your trust in Jesus, this verse applies to you. He surrounds and defends all who fear him. And you know what the best part is? When we ask God to see more of him, the answer is always yes. The Bible says when we draw near to God, he will draw near to us, and that's a promise that we can stand on. So verse 17, the Lord opened the young man's eyes, and when he looked up, he saw that the hillside around Elisha was filled with horses and chariots of fire. Whoosh. That was God's army. God's army surrounding Elisha and his servant. Wow. What an incredible moment for this servant to see God's power on display in such a powerful way. Could you imagine what he felt when God opened his eyes and he saw that army surrounding them with all of their power, with all of God's might, with all of God's promises? They were there to save them. But girls, God's army was always there. He just couldn't see him. I want you to know that there are always two realities. There are always two realities: physical and spiritual. Our physical reality is what we see in the natural. It's our human eyes, our circumstances, our trials, our problems. And that can seem pretty overwhelming and hopeless, can't it? Yeah. When we look at something, what we're walking through, what we're going through in the natural, with just our human eyes, it leads to fear. But as followers of Jesus, we also always have a spiritual reality. Always. And this spiritual reality is what's really happening in the supernatural. What is really happening in the supernatural. The natural is just a mirage. It's just the surface. It doesn't even really matter. It's hard, but what matters is what's happening in the supernatural. And the supernatural reveals a deeper and truer reality. God's promises are true. He's always with us. His army is always fighting for us, and he cannot lose. So guess what? We cannot lose either. That is our reality as followers of Jesus. Elisha saw the enemy surrounding his city, ready to attack, but he also saw the angel army sent by God, who was far greater, far more powerful. And what's so important to realize is God, he was always more in control than the servant's human eyes could see. He was always more in control. Ladies, whatever's going on in your life this weekend, you need to know that God is even more in control than it might seem. He is even more in control. It's not as bad as it looks. You might seem outnumbered. You might feel overwhelmed. But we have to look past the natural and see that God is moving on our behalf in the supernatural. I want you to know and be confident in this fact. As a follower of Jesus, you have never been outnumbered, not even once. Never. The servant's eyes being opened, didn't remove the threat. The enemy army was still there, but God's army is greater. God's army is more powerful, and God's army is fighting your battles. And it's kind of like this. I want you to picture this, okay? Picture that you are in a situation. It's just you, okay? maybe you're struggling, maybe one of your kids is struggling in school, and it's a real battle in your house. And you just always are fighting with the school, and the principal doesn't understand, and you just feel like so overwhelmed and defeated because your kid keeps getting in trouble and you don't know what to do, and you're gonna go talk to the principal, and you just feel a little overwhelmed because you know that you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do, and you're trying to make a difference for your kid, and it just feels overwhelming, and you have an appointment with the principal. And you walk into his office. Can I walk on this? Is that okay? Thank you. Okay. You walk into the principal's office, and you thought you were alone. But as soon as you open the door, every single one of these girls is sitting in that office, ready to fight that battle with you. That would feel like an unfair fight for that principal. One principal, 300 of God's daughters. And then all of a sudden, that battle doesn't seem as overwhelming. Maybe it's a situation in your home where you feel like, I just am not enough. I can't do it. There's too much to do. There's so much laundry. Oh my gosh, newborns have so much laundry. Okay, I'm back. Okay. There's so much laundry, I can't keep up. I'll never accomplish what I have to do today. My task list is way too long. I'm a failure mom. I'm a failure wife. I can't do it alone. You pick up your kids from school, and you walk in the door, and every single beautiful girl that's sitting in this room is in your house, folding your laundry, making your dinner, and you realize you're not alone. If 300 of your closest friends came over to help you do your laundry, it wouldn't really seem like that big of a deal anymore, would it? Now, this is just a silly example and a visual to help you understand what is really following you everywhere you go. I am not going to come do your laundry for you. I can't even do my own laundry. But God's army is with you fighting your battles. So when you feel alone, I want you to visualize what it would be like to have 300 of your closest friends with you everywhere you go, and realize that that's just a representation of God fighting your battles. Because when you really think about 300 people doing your laundry, it seems overwhelmingly ridiculous that you would think that that's hard. And that's what it's like when you allow God to fight your battles for you. That's what it's like when you surrender control and you say, okay, God, I can't do this. In the natural, I can't do this. In my own power, I can't do this. In my own strength, I'll never win. But I know that there is a God who is real, that loves me, and his army is fighting for me. They go before me, they're behind me, they're surrounding me everywhere I go. And the hard moments, the difficult moments in life seem smaller when we realize the power of our God. If we only pray for God to change our circumstances, we won't feel victorious until things change. That puts the victory in the outcome of that situation. But when we pray for God to change our sight, we feel victorious right away. It's immediate victory. Because God has already won the battle. He's already won the fight. And he can't lose. And sometimes we feel like we're not victorious because our situation doesn't turn out how we thought it should. But when we trust God and know that in the end we win, no matter what, in the end, we win. We can walk in that victory now. And walking in victory is not based on circumstance. Walking in victory is based on the goodness and the victory of our God. So as generation women, as beautiful girls, I want to ask you, what do you see? When you look at your life, when you look at your day-to-day, when you look at your situation, do you only see your situation? Do you only see your circumstance? Or do you see God's army all around fighting your battle for you? I'm going to ask you to stand today. I want you to know that in every situation, no matter what it is, in every single situation, God is greater. God is greater. In every situation and circumstance, your battle is already won. You are already victorious. We just need to see the victory.